There was a time when every road led away from something. Away from Fjall, away from Tyr, away from the men Jorgrim once called brothers. He never expected those roads to lead anywhere worth staying. At first, Aldor was nothing more than another land. Different people, different wars, different rules. He fought because that was all he knew. Not for glory, not for coin. Simply because standing still felt worse. But roads have a habit of changing those who walk them. Little by little, the North stopped being the only place that felt familiar. The weight on his back changed. The weapons in his hands changed. Even the way he fought changed. The brute strength forged in Fjall remained, but experience taught him something the North never could. Not every battle is won by striking first. Sometimes the strongest blow comes after enduring one. Pain was no longer something to avoid, nor something to seek. It became another weapon. A reminder that every wound survived could become the strength behind the next swing. The raider from Fjall would have called that weakness. The mercenary of Aldor calls it survival. He no longer fights like the man who crossed the border. He plants his feet, lets the enemy commit, turns their confidence into hesitation, their strength into an opening, their blow into his own. The caravan stopped feeling like a burden. Without noticing, he began waiting for familiar faces, listening instead of merely hearing, sharing silence instead of avoiding it. They were no longer just people traveling beside him. Not quite brothers, not yet, but no longer strangers. For the first time since leaving Fjall, the road ahead felt like it belonged to someone. Not the raider, not the exile, Jorgrim. Jorgrim and the caravan returned to Rotten Willow. The notice boards had nothing left to offer. From here on, no contract would point the way. The road itself would. The work ahead wouldn't be found pinned to a wall. It waited beyond the places people feared to explore. Somewhere between forgotten ruins, abandoned roads, and stories no one could confirm. Without realizing it, Jorgrim had stopped waiting for work to find him. Now he was the one searching for it. Not because he chased coin, not because he craved fame, but because every worthy battle revealed another piece of the man he had become. The North had forged his strength. Aldor was giving it purpose. Jorgrim was never a man of many words. When the caravan reached the area, he chose to stay. No explanation, just instinct. Years of surviving had taught him to trust the feeling that something was waiting nearby. As always, preparation came first. He repaired his gear, packed what he would need, ate, rested if the journey demanded it. Only when everything was in order did he set out alone. His instincts rarely failed him. This time they led him to an old crypt. Bernarhof's Cenotaph. The dead were waiting. Jorgrim did not hesitate. He stepped inside. The battles against the proselytes were still fresh in Jorgrim's mind. They had been worthy opponents, relentless, disciplined, the kind of enemies that demanded his full attention. Perhaps this crypt would offer the same. Perhaps not. It made no difference. Jorgrim pressed forward without hesitation. Whatever waited in the darkness had already chosen its fate. When his axes came down, every undead creature that stood in his path would be forced back into silence. Jorgrim had come with a clear purpose. His axes were sharp, his instincts even sharper. He cut through the first halls without lingering, advancing with unusual urgency. There was no hesitation in his steps, no interest in the scattered dead that rose to stop him. Every corridor became only a path toward the next staircase. Every fallen undead, another obstacle removed. Jorgrim descended deeper into Bernarhof's Cenotaph, driven by the same feeling that had brought him there in the first place. And then, at last, the moment he had been searching for arrived. The silence of the crypt gave way to a single presence, different from the others, stronger. Jorgrim didn't pause to study it. He didn't wait for it to come to him. This was why he had descended, why he had crossed every corridor without slowing down. He tightened his grip on his axes, stepped forward, and met his opponent head-on. The duel was over. Jorgrim stood victorious. It had been a worthy fight. Perhaps he had been a little too confident. But if he held back every time, the battle would lose what made it worth fighting. There was always a risk. Confidence could become carelessness. One mistake was enough to turn a hunter into prey. But Jorgrim had learned to walk that line. His fury no longer ruled him. He ruled it. The Berserker was no longer an impulse. It was a weapon. The crypt's champion lay defeated. Its treasure would serve as proof that the duel had taken place. Now only one task remained. Search every corner, claim what the dead had guarded for centuries, and cut down every undead foolish enough to stand between Jorgrim and his reward. When the last undead fell, the crypt finally went silent. No growls, no footsteps but his own. Only the echo of stone beneath his boots. The fighting was over. Now came the work. Jorgrim moved through every chamber with the same discipline he brought to battle. He smashed old jars, forced open ancient tombs with his crowbar, checked every forgotten corner. Places like these had a habit of hiding more than bones, and experience had taught him never to leave too soon. Once nothing remained unexplored, he made his way back to the camp. The expedition had gone better than expected. His wounds were few, his strength remained, and his spirits were high. After a short rest, Jorgrim looked back toward the road. The day wasn't over yet. Something told him there was still one more challenge waiting. Not far from the camp, Jorgrim noticed a mark on his map, an old mine. The rumors surrounding it were simple enough. A group of seasoned bandits had taken it over. That alone was enough to catch his attention. No written contract, no steward waiting with a reward. Just another problem waiting for someone willing to face it. And if the rumors were true, the duels inside would be worth the walk. Jorgrim adjusted his gear and headed for the mine. The harder the challenge, the stronger his resolve became. As soon as he reached the mine, the fighting began. Jorgrim paid little attention to the veins of ore running through the stone. Gold and precious gems had their value, but they weren't what had brought him there. What he sought were worthy opponents. Another chance to test the strength forged in Fjall against the skill he had developed in Aldor. Every duel was a question, every victory an answer. He stepped forward with axes in hand, ready to prove, once again, that experience, discipline, and relentless resolve could overcome any foe. The most important fight was still ahead. With every battle, Jorgrim learned a little more. At the end of the mine, the bandits' leader finally revealed himself. He did not come alone. His men closed in beside him, ready to overwhelm any lone traveler. Jorgrim tightened his grip on his axes. One more lesson awaited. The duel was over. Jorgrim stood victorious. He claimed his trophy and looked around the now silent mine. There had been a time when every victory felt empty. The pain Jorgrim carried was never born in battle. It was born the day he lost his place in Fjall, the day he lost the brothers he had fought beside. Not for failing them, but for choosing what he believed was right and paying the price anyway. When he first arrived in Aldor, work became his escape. Every road put a little more distance between himself and the life he had left behind. But no matter how far he walked, part of him remained in Fjall. Over time, that changed. Little by little, it stopped defining the man he had been and started shaping the man he was becoming. A man with a place of his own. The caravan that once traveled beside him out of necessity had become part of that new life. Without noticing, Jorgrim had found something he thought he had lost forever. Another place to belong.